Yo guys, welcome back to Macro Crunch. So today, in this part of the Edinburgh to Inverness mini-series, I'm going to be going through all the gear that I'm going to be taking, telling through what my essentials are and what I recommend you bring if you're going to try and implement a trip like this, or just go on a shorter hiking trip and just sort of show what might be worth bringing, what might worth be leaving behind. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start with the things at the back first, just because they're the bigger things and the more kind of obvious ones. So straight away, we've got my tent, a 2-man tent, with all the poles as well. So this tent's actually from Decathlon here in the UK. I know Decathlon's everywhere, but this specific tent is a 2-man tent. It was, I think it's the cheapest one they do. I think it cost me, it was on sale at the time, it was around $22.99. Typically I think it's $29.99 UK pounds. But it's a great tent. It weighs 2.4 kilos in total, which is quite, it's not as lightweight as I perhaps like it to be, and that you can get, especially if you're going on your own, you could get a 1-man tent for around 1.5 kilos, just to keep things even lighter. But personally, I like this extra space you get with a 2-man tent. It means I can put my bag next to me, and you know, I can, even I like hang clothes up slightly and dry them off. You have that sort of space available in there. Secondly, I have my sleeping bag. Now again, this one is from Decathlon also. It's just like I think it's supposed for every weather condition. So the only issue I have personally with sleeping bags is because I stand tall at 6'8", 204 centimeters, and the length of this sleeping bag is 190, meaning that from around sort of, my head is out of the sleeping bag, but in fairness, I wouldn't necessarily like my head to be in anyway. And I can just wrap up over my head, so it's never too much of an issue. But it can feel a bit, compacted in if you are a taller man like I am. Then I have my roll mat, which was kindly lent to me by a family friend. And a roll mat's essential. Now, I've camped in the past without one, and you're never going to wake up the next day feeling good, honestly. It's dependent on the terrain you're camping on, you can get lucky. Like thick grass necessarily doesn't warrant using a roll mat because it's going to be quite padded. However, if you're on a surface where there's a lot of small stones, or it's just quite bumpy, or you've got loose sticks that you don't have time to clear the night before or when you're setting up your tent, a roll mat's essential. It's going to completely eliminate the feel of any of those small sort of impurities in the ground. On your back or your side or your front, wherever you're sleeping directly onto the ground, a roll mat is going to eliminate those, and it's going to make it a much more comfortable experience, especially if, like me, you're going on an 8-day trip, camping for 7 nights. One night, okay, is going to be doable on like a rough surface, but after a couple, it's going to wear you down, morale's going to drop, you're going to become uncomfortable. It may even cause some pain that's going to last the whole duration of the trip, and worst case scenario will lead you to have to stop. Next up, I've got a couple more parts that regard the actual camping aspect. I've got an emergency bivvy bag. I have 2 of these. One more is in the bag itself, which I'll cover very shortly. Emergency bivvies are amazing. They're so versatile as to what you can use them for. This one came with a whistle on it and a small carabiner clip, which is very useful as well. But this bivvy is essentially used as an emergency sleeping bag. So if you don't have time to get your tent out, and you don't have time to get your sleeping bag out, for example, if it's really heavily raining, you can get under a tree, cover yourself in the bivvy and just go to sleep, which obviously doesn't sound ideal, but it's much better than getting your tent set up and getting your sleeping bag in. Especially if it's heavy rain, then you're going to get soaked through and the water is going to go into your tent, and it's going to be uncomfortable for the rest of the days as well, because it does take a long time to dry out a tent, especially when it's rolled up. As well as that, you could put items inside this, fold it over and have a small waterproof pouch. This is a fantastic way to keep things, like your food, your medicine, even like your sleeping bag and roll mat, you could put into a bivvy bag and then into your actual bag, and then it would keep things all waterproof. You could even wrap your bag in the bivvy bag and just leave the straps out if it's heavy rain and your bag doesn't have a rain cover like mine does. But like I said, I'll touch on the bag in a moment. But these are essential, and I would recommend taking at least one. I take two just because then I can wrap some gear inside of one, and then I have a spare one in case it does start raining and I need to just cover up really quickly. And they compact down really small, and they weigh like nothing. Honestly, the majority of the weight from this right now is coming from the carabiner and the whistle, and you can imagine that they're quite light. So really, there's not a lot of weight to this. Carrying two of them, it's going to take up space, but it's really not going to add anything extra onto your load. So I really recommend these. I'll quickly touch on this as well. This is my sitting mat. Now, if you've watched my scaffold pike vlog, which was episode 1 of this mini series, if not, I recommend watching it. I'll leave a link to it up here in the top right corner. But this is a really useful piece of kit. Now, it weighs nothing and essentially folds down to this sort of size, and you unfold it, pop it down on the ground and sit on it. And I've sat on, you know, incredibly rocky surfaces, and you will not feel a thing through this. Even though it's about 0.5 centimetre thick, 5mm, 1/6 of an inch maybe, you know, you're not going to feel anything through that, and you can't really put a price on that, on comfort. So, and this is super cheap as well. As I said in the scaffold pike vlog, this was recommended to me by a friend, my friend Archie, and yeah, he really sorted me out with this, because I remember for a long time as well, he was saying to me, oh, get one of these. And I was like, no, it's fine, I can just sit on the floor. But ever since I got one, I take it with me everywhere. Even when I'm not camping, I take this out with me in my backpack and just use it as and when I need to sit on the floor. Because it saves your bum getting wet, it saves you from getting dust and stuff on it, it saves you from, like I said, sitting on uncomfortable surfaces. So again, a great little purchase. I think this was only like £5. Kindly, like I said, I was gifted this by him, but I think it is only £5, so super cheap, and it's going to save you a lot of discomfort and pain. Now, moving into the meat and potatoes of this is where a lot of the gear is. Now, obviously, I've covered 5 items so far, being the bulk of the camping equipment, but the camping equipment's relatively in the background because you're only going to use it in the evenings when you're sleeping and then packing it away in the morning. The majority of the gear you're going to be using a lot is going to be your things like your food, medicine, camera if you're taking it, power packs, what you're using to brush your teeth and wash yourself with, GPSs, torches, stuff like this. And I'm going to cover all of what I've got obviously now, and just sort of give recommendations on what I recommend taking and what I don't. Obviously, speaking from experience on previous camping trips is what I'm going off of right now, but I've never done a trip of this length. So I'm going to do a follow-up video, of course, after the trip and just say again what I recommend and what I wouldn't. But for now, this is everything I'm taking. So I'm going to start off with my nutrition. Macro Crunch, of course, is based around nutrition, so I'm going to get into that firstly now. I don't have all the food here that I'm planning on taking, but all I have right now is I have 6 of these protein cookies from Mo Protein. So there's the double chocolate chip one, and I have a strawberry and white chocolate chip one. I've been really enjoying these at the moment. They're quite high in calorie, which is what you need when you're walking 20 miles a day for 7 days in a row. And they're very high in protein. So each one's just shy of 300 calories each and 23 grams of protein, which is pretty good. The one thing that I've struggled with, especially when looking into what food I'm going to be able to pick up when I'm on the road and, you know, from like gas stations and you know, supermarkets and whatnot, is protein's kind of hard to carry, especially because a lot of it's going to come in the way of fresh food like meats, tofus, if you're vegan, and like cheeses and stuff. Or it's going to come in tins, which is again like heavy, it's bulky. You can take a couple, but a standard can here in the UK is 400 grams. So if you're going to take 2 of them, you're looking at 800 grams, which is nearly another kilo added on. And you can't really afford to be adding on kilos and kilos at a time for such a small, you know, product or like a small item. But it's an argument that isn't really worth having. I mean, some people will tell you that, you know, food is your priority because it's what you need to fuel yourself up. And of course it is. But I'm going to talk about the nutrition again in just a moment. So that's 6 protein cookies I've got there. I'm probably going to add 1 or 2 more just in case I have a few spares, and they just sit in the top of the bag up here. As well as that, I have made a list. I'll pop it up on the screen somewhere now, probably either on this side or this side. And essentially what I'm going to be doing with my nutrition is stopping in supermarkets to do main shops. Now I have written out a list in this book down here. I have written out a list, and it's basically just goes through what I can buy in each shop. It's got the price there and then the total. So in total, one supermarket shop restock is going to cost me £3.99, and that's going to give me a lot of food. So if I'm to read out what I'm going to be purchasing right now, it's things like water, a big bottle of water. Now I have small bottles, which I haven't included in this, but that goes without saying. I've got some small bottles, but I'm going to be buying a big water bottle, pita breads, fruit and nut mixes, like a trail mix, just to kind of keep the calories in and give me something to graze on. Porridge oats, because again, you need something wholesome in the morning, and you can even use that in the evening when you're cooking on your stove. I've got 1 tin of spaghetti, because 1 tin you can afford to take, plus it then gives me a vessel to boil water in on my stove and heat food up if needs be. And just a couple of other things that are, you know, just necessary to keep the calories high. So that's essentially the nutritional side of it. There is probably going to be more as than when I pick up things from like gas stations where there's things that aren't necessarily on that list. But again, it's all down to what you feel. The main thing you want to have on a trip like this is carbs and protein, because carbs are going to keep you fueled to walk the distance every single day. And the protein is going to help you recover so you don't feel as much wear and tear in your legs, especially when walking, on your shoulders, on your back from carrying the gear. And sometimes even your arms, chest and whatnot, just because it all wears you down. You know, working on setting up the tents, packing it down in the morning, depending on how you've slept, can, you know, determine how much pain you get through your muscles and how much wear and tear. And as well, it's going to limit, getting the protein is going to limit the DOMs. So, which is a nightmare, especially if you're walking 20 miles the next day, and then on the next day is when the DOMs from the first day hit you. It's just going to be a nightmare. So you want to keep the protein relatively high, and of course keep your carbs high so that you're fueled up, and then fats are just there to get the calories in when you're burning this many. Because when I'm walking 20 miles a day, 7 days in a row, it's estimated from my practice to be around 4,000 to 5,000 calories burnt every day, including my base metabolic rate. So my TDEE, or total daily expenditure, total daily energy expenditure, is going to be between 4,000 and 5,000. I'm not going to be tracking any food or anything while I'm here. I'm just going to be eating purely on feel. Like, I'm just going to get as many carbs in as possible, and then eat the proteins in the evenings to help me recover through my sleep. So that's the food. On the same sort of lines, in here I have got a camping stove. Now it comes in a nice little orange waterproof case, but the actual stove itself is really cool. It does, it's tiny and it packs down really small. So as you can see, you fold out those, and it's got a little clicker here on the side that you click, and that's what lights it. The only downside to, and it's an understandable one, is you'll see at the bottom it screws onto a fuel can. I could not purchase a fuel can prior to the trip because I am flying from London to Edinburgh. You can't take fuel cans or gas canisters on aeroplanes for obvious reasons. Therefore, I have to buy it when I'm actually up there, meaning that for a small period of the day I won't have one, but I don't need one because I'm going to be stopping in a supermarket, eating ready-to-eat foods, and then in the evening is when I'm going to be heating things up. So it's not an issue. But just bear that in mind if you're going, because you're not going to be able to take fuel and whatnot on a plane if you are flying to your starting destination. The next thing I wanted to touch on was other essentials that are really important. Things like medicine, right? So I've got things like Nurofen, paracetamol, ibuprofen for painkillers. I've also got antiseptic creams designed for anti-chafing and just helping if you get any rashes and whatnot, just to sort of anti-inflammatory against those. Also got things like Imodium, antiseptic wipes, plasters, bandages, and even got some energy tablets, just because all of these things are going to be essential if and when I need them. I'd rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them. So, and especially because small packets like this, they don't add any weight, don't really add up any space either, so they're really important to take with you. I also have something like Vaseline, just in case I get any chapped lips and stuff like that. not necessarily essential, but important nonetheless. Next up, I've got these as well, Mosquito Head Net. So these basically just sit over your head, over your hat, and stop any mosquitoes from getting into your face and midges getting into your face. You can use long sleeves and whatnot to keep them off of your body, but face can be somewhat difficult, especially without impairing your vision. These are really good because it's such a fine mesh that you can see straight through it, and it stops any insects from getting onto your face and irritating you there. Next up, to go with the food, I missed this. I have a Spork, super light. This one's by Wild Peak, so it's got a spoon one end, fork this end, and a small serrated edge on the side of the fork for cutting through things. Super useful. I've used this a ton of times anyway when I'm just out for like picnics and stuff as well. It's just really useful, and it just slots into a bag. It doesn't take up a lot of room, no weight whatsoever as well. So perfect. Okay, staying on the theme of like healthcare, eating, whatnot. I've got my toothpaste and a toothbrush. And this is a new toothbrush, but and an old toothpaste, not old toothpaste, but a used one. I recommend a used one because if you know how much you're going to need for like the duration of your trip, not taking a full one can cut down the weight. So that's definitely essential. I also have in this small tin. I'm not going to take the tin, but it was just what they came in. Some other cleaning necessities. So here I have things like a body and face wash, a deodorant, and a body and face wash for moisture. So like a moisturising one. Not that I'm necessarily treating it like a spa day, but it helps to have different ones. Next up I have, we'll go on to the technology now, near enough the last stretch of this. So here I have my camera. I couldn't tell you what type of camera this is, but it is a Sony camera. This is what I'm going to be using to do the real like cinematic cut of the experience and get some different footage for the docu-series. So the next episodes will be potentially better quality just because they'll be filmed through this. It's a great camera though, got great zoom on it and whatnot, so it should be really fun to use and really, make things a lot easier basically. I've got a tripod to go with that as well, but that's in the bag already. But it's super lightweight and it's just going to slot on the air, allow me to hold it and vlog and prop it up as well when I'm in the tent or doing other activities basically. Along with this, I have two torches. Now I have a handheld torch and I have a head torch, both of which are deemed near essential. I would say you could use one or the other. You don't necessarily need both, but I would rather have both. A head torch just to slot on your head, so you can use both your hands obviously, which is super useful when setting up the tent if it's dark. I intend to get the tent set up every day before it gets dark, but just in case I'm caught out one night, then, of course, it does help to have a head torch or just a normal torch. You can even just leave a torch set up somewhere, shining a light out, and then therefore it's going to be super useful for you to have. On top of this, I have a solar powered battery pack, which was again kindly gifted to me, kindly lent to me by the same gentleman that gave me the roll mat, family friend. This essentially just sits on the back of my bag all day, just charging up, and then I can use it in the night as and when I need it. And then I have a standard issue battery pack, which is 4,000 milliamp, and it's essentially going to allow me to charge my phone 2 or 3 times in total on a full charge. This is a little bit heavy, but it is essential because you need to keep your phone charged up, especially if you're using it as a GPS. I'm personally not, but if you are, then it always pays to have one of these. Also allows you to keep in contact with loved ones and let them know that you're okay and where you are and share your location if needs be. On top of that, I have chargers, so just some loose cables. This one here is for my phone. I also have one for my watch, but that's already packed. And I have a couple of other spare ones to charge the battery pack if and when I do stop in like cafes and stuff, just for a couple of hours in a rest period. I also have this, which is super useful, and I'll drop a link to this in the description below. This is a 4-way charger. So essentially you can plug it in and it turns one plug into 4, which is so useful, especially if you're in a small cafe. There's a little, like a little coffee shop, there's a little plug next to you, but you've only got one plug. Pop this in, you've now got 4 plugs essentially, and it doesn't slow down how fast each one charges. So it's really useful to have one of these, and essentially it means that I can charge the power pack, my watch, my phone, all at the same time. And within an hour, everything should be back up to scratch to a good level. Okay, last thing on the technology side, I have this, my Garmin eTrex 22X. This thing honestly is a lifesaver. When it was suggested to me by my dad to buy one of these, they are expensive. But, and I, you know, when he suggested it to me, I said, oh, you know, I don't know. I can get it up on my phone, or I can get up on my watch, my route, my destination, you know, tracker. And while you can, it's going to drain your battery so quickly that it's just going to be, and you don't want to get halfway through a route, especially doing 20 miles a day, sort of range that I'm going to be doing. You don't want to get like 15 miles, have it die, and then you've got 5 miles where you're just sort of walking blind. This, so it's battery operated, meaning that you don't have to charge it. You can just quickly switch in and out batteries. And it's got all my routes stored on here. It lasts for ages. I've used this for the entire duration of my practicing, which has been around 8 weeks, and it's used like 25% of the battery, which is, I mean, look, you can't really beat that. And it's phenomenal. They are expensive. I think this one was around £200. It may have even been more. I can't quite remember. I'll have something at the bottom just saying how much it was. But honestly, I could not recommend it enough. I was skeptical at first, but then in training, there's been a lot of situations where it's like, oh, okay, I'm at a crossroads now. Which way do I go? If I didn't have that, I probably would have taken the wrong turn. You know, you see a path which looks more like a hiking path, but then in reality, you should have taken the other way. So that, you know, that's happened to me a couple of times, but luckily I've had that to steer me onto the right path. Finally, you know, you've got essentials like your phone. Obviously, I'm filming on my phone right now, and then your wallet as well. So it always makes sense to take both cash and card with you, just because card's obviously more convenient and it's easier, and weighs less than cash and coins. But cash, some places don't take cash, especially going through national parks and, you know, more rural areas. They might not necessarily take card. I know it's very unheard of nowadays, but it is possible to come into that situation. You'd rather not get caught out. So I recommend taking cash as well. But yeah, that's everything that goes in the bag. So now we'll talk about the bag itself. So this is the Vango 65 litre, I guess, hiking bag. I don't necessarily know the too much of like the name of it. Again, this was recommended to me by my friend at Cotswolds, Archie. He really did a solid on this because he measured it up for me. So on the back here, you have an adjustable where the straps go and how it sits on your back naturally, as well as where these straps sit on your waist. And we completely adjusted all of those for me, and it's super comfortable. Honestly, up to around 5 kilos, it feels like nothing, and then anything over that, it doesn't feel anywhere near as heavy as it is. All of this put together is around 10 kilos, and it doesn't feel like 10 kilos at all, sitting on my back. It allows me to just walk comfortably. There's no constant pulsating pressure down onto my traps or my shoulders, so it's very comfortable. As well as that, it's got a ton of different sections. So, you know, you've got a section up in the top bit of the top, you've got a bottom bit of the top, you've then got all this area inside to fill up, you've got a section at the bottom you can open from to access things at the bottom. So I have my camping stuff at the bottom, and then food and whatnot at the top, meaning that when I get down to the camp, I can just throw the bag down, unzip the bottom, and then get all my camping stuff out, and then everything's set. It sits super comfortably on me, and you know, it's essentially just like the perfect bag for me camping. It also has at the bottom, down in here, it has a cover that you can stretch over the entire bag, and it essentially is a rain cover, meaning that it's waterproof. It's also high vis, so even if it's not raining and it's starting to get a little bit dark, you can pop that over. And if you're walking on busier roads, as cars will come, the light will shine, it will reflect off, and they'll be able to see you from quite a way away, which is good. It also has a whistle here across the strap that goes across your chest, so you can pull it up, give it a little whistle, and you're good to go if you are in danger. But other than that, it has a ton of different compartments, 2 in either side, as well as 2 slot-ins either side as well, which is where I put like my tent poles and my sitting mat. It's a perfect bag. Now, I was also recommended to get a bag like this. It is a little bit more expensive. This one wasn't too bad. I got this for £65, but which is really good for a camping bag, especially one of this size. and then, you know, with this sort of spec. But I was recommended to get a bag like this and get it made to measure, because especially when walking this sort of distance day after day, you don't want it to be wearing and tearing down on your traps, you know, your waist and whatnot on your back. So to get it made to measure, it's going to keep it as comfortable as possible and essentially mean that you're going from, you know, that you're never going to see any discomfort from it, and it's going to make the trip much more enjoyable and much less discomforting. So that's everything, guys. This is just a little overview of everything that I do have. So, you know, we've got like the protein cookies, the camping stuff, the technology stuff, the camera, the wallet, bivvy bag and seating mat, protein cookie nutrition area, the technology down here as well with the 2 torches and the Garmin. I didn't touch on this. These are just some plastic bags used to, you can prep food in them or put prepped food in them. You can also store things like your medicine in there to waterproof it. Here's all the toiletries and essentials. Again, like I just mentioned, the medicines, a Mosquito Head Net, a little journal / notebook just to kind of audit everything you've got and make notes that may be relevant whilst you're on the trip. And then finally, the bag. So thanks for watching, guys. That's everything I'm going to be taking with me on my trip from Edinburgh to Inverness next week. As always, drop a like, drop a comment. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss a video. And I'll see you in the next one.